I think one of the things that you have done is make so many of us in this room feel very seen and appreciated, in that we have been talking about the importance of connection in our community, and you have really brought to light on the national stage, international stage, the importance of connection, not just for our individual health, but for our collective health. And then in such a beautiful way, describe the symptoms, the diagnosis of social isolation and loneliness, and then left us with a parting prescription on what to do about it.
But so if there are folks out there who are like, is this really that important? Is it as important as diabetes or heart disease or the other big issues we're dealing with in society? Is it as important as economic productivity losses and absenteeism and conflict and division in society? I would understand that question. But what's been really interesting to me is, in the time that I was a Surgeon General, I began with this listening tour and began to hear all these stories about loneliness and isolation. And that piqued my interest because it mirrored the stories that I was hearing from my patients over the years. And as I dug into the science around it, there are a couple of things that became very clear. One is that loneliness is much more common than we think, right? So we're talking about 1/3 of adults in America are struggling with loneliness. But what the data is telling us in no uncertain terms, loudly and repeatedly, is that our disconnection from each other is just as important a health issue.
We're asking the question of, what is a life well lived? What does that look like?
Like, what's really needed to build a good life? What I think it's not the triad of success that increasingly our modern day culture has pushed us to see as synonymous with fulfillment. And that triad of success is money, power, and fame. Right? This is what young people told me about everywhere I travel when I would ask them, how do you define success? There's actually a different triad that we need in our life that I think truly does drive fulfillment. And it stems from 3 core needs, I think, that we all have. But we all need relationships in our life.
Right.
We all need to serve, and we all need to have purpose. How do we not just teach our kids about that, not just build that into our programs and curriculum and structure, but there's a deeper cultural shift that we have to make. Culture is what drives everything. Policy, programs, decisions in individual families. I mean, it is rooted in culture. And so the question is, how do we instill a culture that recognizes that worth is intrinsic and recognizes that relationships, purpose, and service are the foundations that we need to cultivate in our lives, and that is, in fact, what makes us rich, that is what allows us to lead a life that we can be proud of, that we can model for our kids? That's a question. But I think culture ultimately changes when more and more of us change what we believe and what we do. And then other people watch that, and they look at that and they say, maybe there's a different way to be. So this is a choice I think we have to make.
Thank you again. All right.